Okay. Hi, Kirstie. Thank you so much for joining me. Can
Thank
you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and where you are?
All right. My name is Kerstie Mulligan. I am the early childhood education specialist for Piedmont Unified School District in Piedmont. I live in Oakland, California. This is my third year teaching this class. And yeah, I think that's it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So it sounds like you have a big job.
Yes.
And how have you been managing your program and your teaching um, during this pandemic starting from March? In other words, are you teaching virtually? Are you in the classroom? How have you been managing that? What's going on?
So in the spring, we did virtual, and I was actually really lucky to be going through the Brandman um, program. As I had just taken the computer class, so I felt really ready for like Google Classroom and trying to make things, because I was trying to come up with ways to make those things work in person, but then lo and behold, we were not in person. So um, I really quickly got a Google Classroom going, and I was doing Google Meets with my kids. I had 9 students, and they were all, I had all had them all for, they were all graduating. So I had them for a really long time, and I just, kind of felt like, I had to try to make things normal for them as much as I could. And so, I came into my classroom and I got all of the circle time materials that, like, so they could hear the songs that they knew. And so we pretty quickly started doing daily circles with them. And then I just as it continued to be that we were not coming back, I started thinking of different ways to connect with them. So I would do one-on-one meets, and then they weren't really signing up for those. So I started doing play dates. And so I would have 2 kids, and we would all try to have the same materials and play with stuff together. So we did that and got through the year. And I think everyone was pretty, as happy as they could be to lose our, preschool graduation. And then this school year, I'm kind of starting from scratch, and going to have a slow start. And we are in the process of getting the classroom together to bring students in next week. So we're going back to from virtual back to in person
And
in a
how are you
very
feeling about that? How are you feeling about going in person?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, my classroom is smaller than I wish it was, so it's been hard to figure out exactly how it's going to look. And best laid plans, you don't know what's going to happen until they get here. um and I mean, I think, I have kind of one kid coming in and then another kid coming in and another kid. So I'm feeling pretty, like, safety wise, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like it's nice to be starting with a smaller group and kind of seeing how each of them, how it's going to be. I mean, it's just going to be so interesting. It's going to be just so different than anything we know or anything we've ever had to prepare for. Or we just have to kind of be ready for whatever comes. So
That's right.
yeah.
You don't know what that's going to be.
No.
So what has been most challenging or even painful about this process so far?
um I mean, I was, you know I would say devastated a bit when we first closed. And I remember when we first closed, and not too long after that, Gavin Newsom said we wouldn't be going back to school. I was like, oh my God, how can you say that? We have so much more time. And because I had my students for a really long time, and they were special to me, and it was a big class, and it was nice to have a big class. And we were going to have this big group of kids moving on, so we actually were going to be able to celebrate it, and it just kind of all got ripped from me. And I think that was the biggest challenge was, and because I could figure out how to, I figured out pretty quickly how to get a virtual circle time going, and I had a great time making iMovies for them. So I felt like I helped keep our connections together, but it was just really sad that we didn't get that um, the physical goodbyes. So that
So the
was,
emotional part of not being able to have that goodbye and that ceremony.
yeah. And I actually have my own 3 and 5-year-old at home. So as you can imagine, that was, I mean, behind the school scenes, that was just even harder, was being a parent too.
Because you were managing them school full time,
Yeah.
and had no childcare, of course.
Right. So they were actually in a lot of my meetings with tantrums and all kinds of stuff. So that's a whole
Nice. Yeah.
that's a whole other
Very difficult
show.
for teachers right now, especially when they're parents too.
Yeah.
And most teachers probably are, just
Yeah.
not most, but many teachers are parents. Yeah. And to manage all that, you have the both. So you're really probably pretty empathetic with parents
Yeah.
who had the same age children as you. So let me just kind of go to that question.
Yeah.
How have you been supporting families and caregivers? And one of the reasons I'm asking this is that I have found that a lot of educators of young children are really working more with parents than they have in the past due to the
Mhm.
situation. So I'm just wanting to know how that went for you, and did you find yourself in that position of being a
Yeah,
parent
so
consultant?
it was funny. So when it was, when we were kind of all still hopeful that it wasn't going to be the end of the school year, a lot of the one-on-ones I had signed up for with the kids ended up being the parents just, wanting to talk to me, which was absolutely fine. And I was happy to, I even offered that if they wanted that separate from their children's time. Um, but I also think that they were, showed some compassion for me. And I don't think they wanted to bother me knowing how much because they could see me struggling with my own kids occasionally. Um, so they didn't really want to put that burden on me, but when I did, I definitely, it was just kind of, I think it was less of like a parent teacher support and more of just, I became like a parent friend of theirs because we were all had the same aged kids. So it was just kind of, it ended up being, I was a person they could talk to about the challenges that they were going through, or and I could, and I think also being able to see me struggle with in a sense probably brought them a little comfort because they could see that, okay, well, the teacher with a typically developing child is having a similar struggle that I am, so maybe this is normal, or so I think just in both of those aspects, it was just kind of a natural support system that we had for each other.
It sounds like yeah, it sounds really like some bonding, some mutual support, and
Yeah.
just sticking
And
together.
definitely, yeah, it was definitely, I was already close with this group, but I think, I mean, we went through a traumatic experience together. So I think I'll always be close with them just
Mm-hmm.
for experiencing that with them.
Right, went through trauma together.
Yeah.
So this leads me to my next question, which
Mhm.
is, how have you had to exercise compassion? Have you felt that you have had to be compassionate more often?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's there's I think being able to be inside of people's homes now and seeing kind of what they go through, because a lot of times you hear about the kid that they are at home, and we have a lovely kid at school, and I definitely saw some things where it just was naturally, you feel more compassion for, oh, that is happening at home, and it's harder. I can say that it's so much more fun to teach 3-year-olds than be a parent to one, because they're hard. So um you know it's fun to teach the little guys, but I'm really excited that my kids are going to continue to get older. So it's just yeah, so I think just in
Yeah.
general, I think being with in their homes more and seeing those, the parent child challenges was you definitely
Right. It's more personal.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So has there been anything, I mean, you've already described some things I think are positive, but is there anything positive that you've learned that's come out of this? For example, something, some strategy or, even a technology that you might move forward into your teaching?
Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely think, I think I've expanded my movement um, activities more, and we already had some pretty good ones, but I don't know how I would keep if I would keep the connection of like the video with the kids. But I definitely think, it's kind of other teachers modeling movement activities for kids. Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard one because it's hard to, bring YouTube into the classroom. Then virtual, then for the virtual side, we used it more.
Well, you might not necessarily be technology, but you just described
Yeah,
that you might be able to do more, feeling more confident and doing movement activities.
yeah,
That would be one thing.
yeah.
Uh, some people have said that they feel like they might meet with parents virtually, for
Hmm.
meetings more,
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, I hope that, I think in the school wide, it would be so much more useful for like conferences to be virtual than, kids would still have to do something else on those days, but yeah, I think for sure, and I'll be interested to see if IEPs maybe stay virtual as well because
hmm
they seem to be more quicker, when you're
hmm
online too, which is
Yeah.
nice that everyone kind of keeps things to the point because you haven't like done this whole plan to cut out a huge chunk of your day and have parents leave work and come into the school. So it'll
Might
be
be more convenient for everybody.
And actually, one of the things now that my brain's flowing, kind of the collaboration between staff members, like we got a little tighter on that virtually, just because we would actually meet before a kid's IEP rather than I would, see the speech therapist on this day and talk to her and see the occupational therapist on another day and talk to her. Whereas we would actually like have a good team meeting before the IEP. So that's something that I think would be great to keep going because we realized how many goals we could have that were that more than one person could work on, and
Yeah.
we kind of made more team goals, which I think is the best
Yeah.
way to do it
So
for
there are
everyone.
some really great things that are going to move forward, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Um, so have you had to be brave? Have you had to have some courage? And if so, what has taken courage for you?
I mean, I think I felt a little vulnerable, but also brave and courageous to bring my families into my home. Um, it was, I would sometimes close my meeting and cry because it was embarrassing for me to have my kids screaming at me or throwing stuff at me or running away with the speaker, and I had to just kind of sit pretty and pretend like everything was okay. So I mean that took some courage for me to keep
For
going,
sure.
but I mean that's really all I can think of.
Well, vulnerability, that is when, feeling vulnerability, that is the same as feeling
Yeah,
courage,
yeah,
because you're feeling vulnerable and you're going to do it anyway. And I can only imagine.
yeah.
I used to teach preschool way back, and when my youngest, I have three daughters, was really young, she would come with me. I had some mommy and me classes. Just, I'm still, I'm still
Yeah,
recovering from that
and it's
trauma. So,
brave to show up the next day
mhm,
after a tough time. So
yeah, yeah. So, Um, okay, so what have you learned about taking care of yourself during this time? Or how have you been taking care of yourself? Let me ask it that way.
um well, it's been a little challenging with the young kids, but I have been, I've been I've been exercising during because I have, I kind of stay in my classroom longer than I need to, so I can take care of myself, which is one thing I've done for myself. Um, and um, I think it's scary to be unhealthy right now. So I think, trying to be more healthy has been, and I'm also trying, like my daughter and I try to do little yoga activities at night. So I'm trying to help her with that. Um, so that's really the main thing is like, if I happen to get coronavirus, what can I do to make sure that I recover quickly and well? So I think really taking care of myself has been a priority that I haven't been able to do when I was in school or with younger babies. So,
Well, I hope you're able to carry that forward. You're the
yeah.
first person I've talked to who has mentioned, trying to the risk of getting the disease. I think a lot of us are just like, not going to look at that, but as a teacher, especially going back into the classroom,
Yeah.
you're running that risk. And that's one of the, I'm glad you were able to share about that.
Yeah.
This has been so great and
Oh,
interesting. Do you have any last words of advice for other teachers who are in your position?
oh gosh. I would like to hear that advice. um, I think just, I silver linings are the biggest thing that has helped me get through everything. And there has been a lot of silver linings in work and at home. So I think just, trying to stay positive is, you know, and not go down the negative rabbit hole is the biggest thing that helps. Because the mental state is the most important thing here at what we're dealing with.
That's a good point. Really good advice. Just work on your mental staying positive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much. I
Yeah.
really appreciate your time. I think this is going to be something that is going to be helpful to other people. So
Awesome.
I am just really glad to have you here.
All right. Thank you so much.